I was born in Germany, which is now Poland. I went to Shanghai in 1939 with both my mother and father. And my most vivid memory of Shanghai is this. I lived in a camp which was called Wayside Camp. And a bunch of little kids aging from 5.5 to 6 years old. We went from this camp to another one, which was called the Wardroad Camp. And the reason we went there, the older people, they carried a banner, which was a white bed sheet inscribed as "We are hungry, we need food." And luckily or fortunately, in 1941, early 1941, the American Jewish Joint Committee, they came through with food and medications. This was all directed by a lady named Margulis. I was also fortunate enough that at that time, a couple that had a leather factory in the French Concession, I believe it was between Avenue Foch and Avenue Pétain. They took me in and they sent me to a Catholic school, which was not Saint Ignatius. It was Saint Ignatius something. It ended up with UE, and this was a Catholic school with mostly Belgian brothers. They didn't care very much for me, neither did I. But every morning we went to catechism mass, and the only thing I remember is that's the way all of the Catholic masses start, Dominus Vobiscum. And after that, after the month and a half or so that I was there, I went back to the camp where my parents lived, and also at that time my brother was born. And I was sent to the Kaduri school, or the SJYA. I didn't last there very long because I did some mischief, and they called my parents, and I had to leave. So then I went to another school called the Freisinger School. That was a German refugee who founded the school, and it was quite good. The main subjects that I liked were arithmetic, geography, and European history. I managed to stay there because I guess that there was another school left. And the only problem there getting to that school is there were these white Russians that came from at the time of the 1918 revolution in Russia, and they were quite anti-Semitic. And the route that we had to take, myself and some of the other students, we came to a certain corner and they were waiting for us. And so they felt that, these Jewish kids couldn't fight, and we'll teach them a lesson. In the beginning they did, but later on we had in the camp a lot of athletes, very good athletes from Germany, and they taught us how to box. So when we got to that certain section, we finally were able to defend ourselves. There was only one member of the whole group. They drowned him, and that was just very, very unfortunate. What else can I say? After this was quite very happy. When in 1945, when the war ended, and finally the American air transport planes came in with what they called the 10-in-1 rations, and they were distributed. They were distributed to the various camps and the other refugees in Shanghai. I think that mostly was due, again, to the American Jewish Joint Committee. And So at that time, the life itself became a lot better. My father got a job at the Xiaowan airport refueling the American planes coming in. So then in 45, we stayed there another 2 years. In 47, we came to San Francisco, where I had my bar mitzvah. And from here, we couldn't stay here. My parents and I, we did not have the right papers. And my mother had her parents and also her siblings in Bolivia, South America. So that's where we went, and we stayed there until 1953 when I came back here. And that's just about all I can say.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. I would just like you to welcome now a few people who are here to tell you what they're about. Ms. Violet Dufang is the director of the Shanghailanders, a PBS production funded by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Would you like to give us a wave? Just kidding.
The most important thing is I'm born and raised in Shanghai. I'm a native Shanghainese. I'm very honored to work on this project.
Iris Sampson is an associate producer of the Shanghailanders. She is an entertainer who works closely with WQED TV in Philadelphia. And she has won many local and state awards. One gives her Frank Calero, thank you, is the Shanghailanders Director of Photography, and he's been busy the entire time. We also have the J Weekly here. Thank you, Gabriel. And we have here the Angel Island Immigration Foundation, who's also videotaped. Now I'd like you to hear about Shirley Temple and her friend Eva. In May 1940, 12-year-old Eva Herschel and her family left Germany on the Italian liner Conte Verde. The Conte Verde was the last boat to leave Genoa. Italy had entered the war, thus closing off this route of escape. Eva and her family were joining 20,000 Jewish refugees who escaped to Shanghai. After the war, Eva Herschel moved to Marin and wrote this story. Please enjoy.
Hello, I'm Sharon Blevis, and I'm privileged to be able to read this story. As a little girl of about 7 or 8 years old, living in Breslau, Germany, the day I looked forward to most was Sunday, or to be exact, Sunday movie matinee. My idol was Shirley Temple. I, who had straight hair, envied all her lovely curls. I, who was skinny and uncoordinated, couldn't sing or dance, sat enthralled watching her in the movie after movie. Actually, I never thought of it as a movie. I was sure that what was taking place was real life, and so I followed the adventures of my little friend. I laughed with her, and I cried with her. Since she sang and spoke in German, I had no reason to believe that she was anything but German. It didn't bother me the least that my other friends' names were Inga, Gerda, or Erica. There was, in fact, not a single Shirley among them. Of course, I knew that, like me, she was Jewish. Names like Levy and Cohen were Jewish names, and as such, Temple certainly qualified. After all, every Friday evening, Saturday morning, and all our other holidays, my mother took me to temple, and that temple was certainly Jewish. No one had ever explained the process of dubbing voices to me. I knew only vaguely of other languages such as French or English. I had never heard of Hollywood, and America was a place somewhere grown-ups were talking about with increasing frequency. Then came the day the Nazis decreed Jews were no longer allowed to sit on park benches, go to the opera, symphony, theater, or the movies. I didn't care if I sat on their stupid benches. I never sat still long enough anyway. I was too young for the opera, symphony, or theater, I reasoned, but the movies, that was different. My happy little world was falling apart. I listened to the teacher explain about immigration. She talked of countries such as Palestine, America, England, Australia, and of others I didn't even know existed. Cochabamba, Bolivia, Quito, Ecuador, Lima, Peru, Montevideo, Uruguay, and where in the world was Madagascar? Places so far away you had to get on a big boat, cross a large ocean to get there. It was hard to imagine. Many of my school friends with their families were leaving. Perhaps I thought Shirley would also leave, or else I would, and we would never see each other again. My suspicion came true when in May of 1940 my family and I took a train from Breslau to Munich and another train from there over the Brenner Pass to Genoa, Italy. And just as my teacher had foretold, we got on a big boat, crossed a large ocean, and 4 weeks later landed in Shanghai, China, where some 20,000 Jews had already found refuge. We had left behind family, friends, and Shirley, and I cried a lot. I had been in Shanghai only a few weeks when one day, walking down the wayside road, I happened to pass a cinema, and there, to my utter joy and delight, was a large poster from which Shirley's eyes smiled at me. I could have hugged her. I was so happy and relieved. I ran home to tell my mother the good news. "She's here," I shouted. "Who is here?" my mother asked. Shirley Temple. Isn't that wonderful? She got out of Germany. She is safe and living right here in Shanghai. I know, I saw her picture," I continued breathlessly. My mother knew little about Shirley Temple except what I had described to her after each movie I had seen, but she too was happy for anyone lucky enough to have escaped the Nazis. I could hardly wait for my allowance, and once again I was off to a movie matinee. Impatiently I sat in my seat, eager for the curtain to raise and for Shirley to appear. At last she did, and I was thunderstruck. I couldn't believe my ears. I had been enrolled in an English school right after we arrived in Shanghai. My vocabulary had progressed to "this is a chair" and "that is a table." I struggled desperately with the seemingly impossible to pronounce "thes." How, I asked myself in utter bewilderment, was it possible that in the short time since we had both left Germany, Shirley not only spoke English, she had in fact mastered the language perfectly. I was very impressed. Truly, I decided she could not only sing and dance beautifully, she was a linguistic genius as well. Right then and there, I vowed to do better in school. This and that had to go. If she could do it, so would I. Or at least I thought. Somehow, though, I never quite got it right. But my Shirley story doesn't end there. Almost 50 years later, while I was working at Fireman's Fund Insurance Company in Novato, our then CEO every so often gathered all the employees in the cafeteria for a State of the Union address. The theme was almost always the same. Times are tough, we have to tighten our belts. Although those meetings were somewhat mandatory, with an occasional mystery guest in attendance, I soon tired of the whole routine. One day, instead of going to the meeting, I remained at my desk. After a while, I decided to go downstairs and deliver some paperwork. On my way, I happened to pass the cafeteria, and there, to my utter joy and delight, addressing the employees about her experiences as ambassador to Ghana, was Shirley Temple. There was warm and generous applause at the conclusion of her talk, and I just stood there listening to an echo of a day so many years ago. "She is here," I shouted quietly, hoping somehow my mother could hear me. We've nearly come to the conclusion of our program. Please enjoy looking at the memorabilia in the back of the room. You will find 2 books that include all of the names that are on the survivors wall that Carissa spoke about at the Shanghai Jewish Refugees Museum. They're carefully cataloged alphabetically so you can look for people you might know. Please also enjoy the refreshments in the social hall, which is behind those curtains. And since WQED will be interviewing Shanghailanders and their descendants after you get refreshments, we will direct you as to where to go. Thank you so much for your attention. Please enjoy the refreshments and the memorabilia.